The early 1970s were marked by dramatic changes in the automotive industry. As government regulations tightened on emissions and safety, and the oil crisis loomed, American automakers scrambled to adapt. Unfortunately, this period also produced some of the most awkward, uninspired, and poorly designed car bodies. Between 1970 and 1975, several models hit the market that disappointed in both aesthetics and functionality. Here are 10 of the worst examples.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 10, 1972 Buick Centurion, a vehicle that embodied some of the most common pitfalls in automotive design during the early 1970s. While Buick positioned the Centurion as a premium, full-size car with a blend of luxury and performance, its awkward proportions and heavy-handed styling left it lagging behind competitors in terms of visual appeal. The Buick Centurion was introduced as a replacement for the Wildcat, positioned just below the Electra in Buick's full-size lineup. It was meant to offer an upscale driving experience with distinctive styling that set it apart from more utilitarian, full-size cars. However, while it delivered on luxury features and power, the Centurion's design failed to achieve the balance of elegance and athleticism that buyers expected. One of the most glaring issues with the Centurion was its overall proportions. The car's body seemed overly elongated, with a rear deck that stretched out unnecessarily. This gave the vehicle an unbalanced appearance, with too much bulk concentrated behind the rear wheels. The exaggerated rear overhang also made the car look heavier than it needed to be, diminishing any sense of sleekness or dynamism. The front grille was another design misstep. Buick opted for a massive vertical grille flanked by oversized headlight bezels. While the grille may have been intended to convey a sense of luxury and presence, it instead came across as overly domineering and out of proportion with the rest of the car. The grille's weighty appearance made the front end look excessively bulky, further emphasizing the car's overall heaviness. One of the most frustrating aspects of the Centurion's design was the lack of cohesion between its elements. The stretched rear deck, heavy grille, and slab-sided body panels all seemed to compete for attention rather than working together to create a harmonious design. This disjointed approach left the car feeling visually fragmented, with no single feature standing out in a positive way. The Centurion's roofline didn't do it any favors either. The sedan's upright and formal roof structure clashed with the rest of the body's proportions, making it look like a different design entirely. The two-door hardtop fared slightly better with its flowing roofline, but even then, it failed to offset the vehicle's bulkiness. By 1972, the American full-size car market was highly competitive, with manufacturers like Chevrolet, Ford, and Chrysler introducing bold and innovative designs. Vehicles like the Chevrolet Impala and the Ford LTD struck a better balance between size, elegance, and modern styling, leaving the Centurion looking outdated and clunky by comparison. The Centurion's awkward proportions and excessive use of chrome clashed with the design trends of the era, which were increasingly moving towards sleeker, more aerodynamic shapes. The 1972 Buick Centurion provides several key lessons in automotive design. Proportions must be carefully managed to ensure that no single part of the vehicle dominates or feels out of place. A successful design requires all elements, grille, roofline, body panels, to work together as a unified whole. Excessive use of chrome and oversized features can quickly tip a car from luxurious to gaudy. Staying in tune with contemporary styling cues can prevent a vehicle from looking dated at launch. The 1972 Buick Centurion is often remembered as a vehicle that tried to do too much without executing any aspect particularly well. While it offered plenty of power and interior comfort, its design left much to be desired, making it less competitive in a crowded full-size market. Today, the Centurion serves as a reminder that even luxury cars must adhere to principles of proportion and cohesion to achieve lasting appeal. The 1972 Buick Centurion's design was a missed opportunity for Buick to make a bold statement in the full-size segment. Its ungainly proportions and fragmented styling failed to capture the elegance or athleticism needed to stand out, leaving it overshadowed by more refined competitors. Number 9, 1978 Dodge Aspen sedan, a car that illustrates how uninspired design choices can overshadow an otherwise functional vehicle. Despite being marketed as a practical and economical choice, the Aspen's bland and forgettable styling left it struggling to stand out in a competitive market. The Dodge Aspen was introduced in 1976 as a compact alternative to Chrysler's larger offerings. Along with its Plymouth Fury sibling, it was intended to appeal to buyers looking for a smaller, more efficient car that didn't compromise on comfort or practicality. Unfortunately, while the Aspen delivered in terms of size and interior space, its exterior design left much to be desired. By 1978, when this iteration of the sedan hit the streets, its styling had already begun to feel outdated and uninspired. The Aspen sedan's most glaring flaw was its slab-sided profile. The flat, featureless body panels ran the length of the car, giving it a blocky, uninspired appearance. There was little in the way of contouring or sculptural detail to break up the monotony, making the car look dull and heavy. This lack of surface interest was especially problematic in an era when competitors were experimenting with bold lines and dynamic shapes to inject life into their designs. The front of the Aspen was equally lackluster. The grille, while functional, was a plain rectangle flanked by simple rectangular headlights. There was no attempt to create a focal point or add a sense of personality to the front end. Even the bumper, which incorporated a large amount of chrome, looked more like an afterthought than an intentional design feature. The result was a face that failed to exude any sense of identity or appeal. In an effort to add a touch of luxury, Dodge opted for heavy chrome accents on the Aspen. Unfortunately, rather than elevating the car's appearance, this approach only served to emphasize its bland design. The chrome trim around the windows and along the sides felt excessive, drawing attention to the car's slab-sidedness rather than distracting from it. Additionally, the large chrome bumpers added bulk without contributing to a cohesive aesthetic. Overall, the Aspen sedan's design suffered from a lack of distinct character. It didn't possess the sportiness of a compact muscle car, the elegance of a luxury sedan, or the quirkiness of a true economy car. Instead, it seemed to occupy an uninspired middle ground that failed to resonate with any particular audience. By the late 1970s, the compact car market was becoming increasingly competitive. Rivals such as the Ford Fairmont and Chevrolet Nova offered more modern and dynamic styling, leaving the Dodge Aspen struggling to keep up. The lack of visual appeal was compounded by the Aspen's reputation for rust issues and mechanical problems, further tarnishing its image in the eyes of consumers. While it initially sold well, these shortcomings caused sales to decline as buyers turned to more appealing alternatives. The 1978 Dodge Aspen sedan teaches us several important lessons about automotive design. Even practical, budget-friendly cars need a strong visual identity to succeed in a crowded market. Excessive chrome or other embellishments can't compensate for a fundamentally uninspired shape. A design that might have been passable in an earlier decade can feel dated and irrelevant as trends evolve. A car that breaks new ground, even in small ways, is more likely to capture buyers' attention than one that plays it safe. Today, the 1978 Dodge Aspen sedan is remembered as a cautionary tale of how mediocrity in design can undermine an otherwise practical vehicle. Its slab-sided profile, uninspired fascia, and excessive chrome failed to leave a lasting impression, making it a largely forgotten footnote in Dodge's history. The 1978 Dodge Aspen sedan's design may have been functional, but it lacked the creativity and character needed to stand out. In a market driven by both practicality and visual appeal, the Aspen's bland styling ultimately worked against it, highlighting the importance of thoughtful and cohesive design in the automotive industry. Number 8, 1974 Chevrolet Malibu Classic, a car that attempted to update Chevrolet's midsize offering, but instead fell victim to poor proportions and uninspired styling. This redesign serves as an example of how design missteps can dilute the identity of a well-regarded model. By the mid-1970s, Chevrolet's Malibu nameplate was synonymous with practical yet stylish midsize cars. The first-generation Malibu, introduced in 1964, was a hit, combining sporty lines with everyday usability. However, as the 1970s progressed, growing concerns about safety and fuel efficiency led to significant design and engineering changes in the automotive industry. In 1974, Chevrolet unveiled a redesigned Malibu Classic, which aimed to balance these new demands while retaining the model's charm. Unfortunately, the result was a bloated, uninspired design that failed to capture the elegance of its predecessors. The most immediate criticism of the 1974 Malibu Classic was its bloated appearance. The car's overall dimensions increased, resulting in a heavier, bulkier look. While this was partly due to new federal safety regulations requiring larger bumpers, the execution lacked finesse. The added size wasn't integrated seamlessly into the design, making the car appear cumbersome rather than sleek. This bulk undermined the sense of sportiness that earlier Malibus had successfully conveyed. Another major issue was the extensive use of flat, unadorned surfaces on the body. The car's sides were almost entirely featureless, giving it a slab-sided appearance that lacked depth or character. This design choice might have been intended to evoke simplicity or modernity, but it instead made the car look plain and unrefined. Compared to competitors that embraced sculpted lines and bold detailing, the Malibu Classic felt stagnant and uninspired. The front fascia was particularly disappointing. The grille, composed of horizontal bars framed by square headlights, was unremarkable and lacked visual interest. There was no bold centerpiece or distinctive design element to give the car a commanding presence. Moreover, the integration of the federally mandated 5-inch bumpers was clumsy. The large chrome bumper dominated the front end without adding elegance or sophistication, further contributing to the car's ungainly look. Earlier Malibu models managed to blend practicality with a sense of style, but the 1974 redesign abandoned this balance. The car no longer had the clean, sporty lines of its predecessors, and its heavier proportions gave it a utilitarian rather than elegant appearance. The 1974 Chevrolet Malibu Classic was reasonably successful in terms of sales, as it benefited from Chevrolet's reputation and loyal customer base. However, the car's design was often criticized for lacking the flair and sophistication buyers had come to expect from the Malibu nameplate. In a market where competitors like the Ford Torino and Dodge Charger were experimenting with more daring and dynamic designs, the Malibu Classic felt conservative and out of touch. The 1974 Malibu Classic teaches us several valuable lessons about automotive design. While safety and emissions regulations are important, integrating these changes in a design requires creativity and finesse. Bulky bumpers and larger dimensions don't have to result in a clumsy appearance. A redesign should evolve a model's design language while retaining its core identity. The Malibu Classic lost the elegance and sportiness that had defined earlier iterations, alienating some loyal buyers. Flat, featureless surfaces rarely resonate with consumers. Thoughtful detailing and sculptural elements can elevate a design, even in larger vehicles. The 1974 Chevrolet Malibu Classic serves as a cautionary tale about the challenges of redesigning an established model during a period of regulatory and market change. Its bloated proportions, flat surfaces, and uninspired front end failed to capture the spirit of its predecessors, leaving it as a middling entry in Chevrolet's midsize lineup. While functional and practical, the Malibu Classic lacked the character and charm needed to truly stand out, illustrating the importance of thoughtful, cohesive design in maintaining a car's legacy. Number 7, 1977 Ford LTD2, a car that embodied the excesses of 1970s design. With its exaggerated overhangs and fuselage-like styling, the LTD2 struggled to balance luxury aspirations with functional design, especially in its four-door configurations. In the mid-1970s, the automotive market faced a significant shift. Consumer demand for larger, more luxurious cars persisted, but rising fuel prices and tightening emissions regulations began to influence design priorities. Ford introduced the LTD2 in 1977 as a replacement for the Torino, positioning it as a personal luxury car with full-size ambitions. However, instead of achieving a harmonious balance, the LTD2 became a prime example of overdesign, where aesthetics and proportions clashed with practicality and taste. One of the most noticeable flaws of the LTD2 was its exaggerated body overhangs. The front and rear extensions jutted out far beyond the car's wheels, creating an ungainly profile. While these overhangs may have been intended to convey grandeur, they made the car appear unnecessarily stretched and clumsy. Parking and maneuvering became more difficult, while the extra length added no functional benefit. The LTD2 adopted a fuselage-like design language, with a wide, bulky body that attempted to mimic the sleekness of an aircraft. Unfortunately, the execution fell flat. Instead of appearing aerodynamic or sophisticated, the car looked bloated and cumbersome. The slab sides lacked contour or sculptural detail, resulting in a monotonous visual experience. The overly rounded edges further emphasized the car's massiveness, making it seem heavy and unwieldy. The four-door version of the LTD2 was particularly awkward. The long rear doors and tall roofline disrupted the flow of the design, making the car feel disjointed. Unlike the Coupe, which had a slightly sportier demeanor, the sedan lacked any defining character. Its sheer size overwhelmed its proportions, giving it the aesthetic appeal of a large, featureless box. As with many 1970s vehicles, the LTD2 suffered from excessive chrome accents. The grille, bumpers, and trim were heavily adorned, creating a garish and dated look. Instead of adding a sense of luxury, the chrome only amplified the car's awkwardness, as it drew attention to its ungainly features. Despite its design shortcomings, the LTD2 found a market niche, primarily due to its size and the perception of luxury it conveyed. Buyers who valued presence over refinement were drawn to the car. However, it struggled to compete with sleeker rivals like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Chrysler Cordoba. Critics often pointed out its poor handling, excessive weight, and dated styling. The 1977 Ford LTD2 offers several key takeaways for automotive designers and manufacturers. A car's overhangs and overall dimensions must be well proportioned to maintain visual balance and practicality. Excessive extensions often make a car look ungainly and outdated. Chrome and other embellishments should enhance a design, not overwhelm it. Subtle, tasteful accents are more effective in conveying luxury than heavy-handed applications. Borrowing design cues from other industries, such as aviation, requires careful adaptation. Simply mimicking fuselage shapes without considering automotive proportions often results in awkward and clumsy designs. The 1977 Ford LTD2 is a prime example of how over-design can compromise a vehicle's aesthetic and practical appeal. Its exaggerated body overhangs, uninspired fuselage styling, and awkward proportions undermined its luxury aspirations, particularly in the four-door sedan configuration. While it may have resonated with buyers seeking sheer size and presence, the LTD2 ultimately serves as a cautionary tale for automotive designers. Balance, restraint, and thoughtful execution are essential in creating a car that stands the test of time. Number 6, 1975 Plymouth Fury, a full-size sedan that exemplifies how outdated styling and oversized dimensions can fail to resonate with changing consumer preferences. While the Fury had a legacy as a reliable and versatile car, the 1975 iteration marked a departure from innovation and an embrace of boxy, overly formal design cues that clashed with emerging trends in the automotive industry. By the mid-1970s, full-size cars were facing challenges from rising fuel prices, tightening emissions regulations, and shifting consumer tastes. Buyers increasingly leaned toward vehicles with sleeker, more modern designs that balance practicality with aesthetics. The Fury, however, seemed trapped in the past. Plymouth, a division of Chrysler, designed the 1975 Fury with the intention of emphasizing formality and size. But this approach backfired in a market seeking fresh, forward-looking styling. The 1975 Fury's design language was dominated by straight lines and sharp angles, creating a boxy silhouette that lacked visual interest. The upright stance and squared-off edges made the car appear excessively formal, as if it were designed for dignitaries rather than everyday drivers. While some buyers appreciated its no-nonsense approach, most saw it as uninspired and out of touch with contemporary tastes. The Fury was massive, even by the standards of the 1970s. Its extended length and width gave it an imposing presence on the road, but not in a flattering way. Unlike competitors that embraced flowing lines and aerodynamic profiles, the Fury's sheer bulk felt cumbersome and unwieldy. Its size wasn't complemented by graceful proportions, leading to a vehicle that looked more like a land barge than a refined sedan. In 1975, automakers like Ford and Chevrolet were introducing sleeker designs, even for their full-size offerings. The Plymouth Fury, on the other hand, clung to an old-fashioned aesthetic that made it appear outdated. The roofline was particularly problematic. It was tall and upright, creating an awkward contrast with the long, flat hood and trunk. This lack of flow in the design resulted in a car that felt disjointed rather than cohesive. The Fury didn't take risks or introduce innovative design elements to stand out in a crowded market. Instead, it relied on heavy chrome accents and flat, featureless panels. The front grille was wide and blocky, further emphasizing the car's conservative design. Meanwhile, the side profile offered little to catch the eye, with long stretches of plain sheet metal that felt more utilitarian than stylish. While the Fury remained a reliable choice for some buyers, it struggled to compete against rivals like the Chevrolet Impala and Ford LTD, which offered more contemporary styling and better proportions. Critics often pointed out that the Fury felt like a car from the previous decade. Its design seemed disconnected from the trends of the mid-1970s, making it difficult to attract younger buyers or those seeking a sense of modernity in their vehicle. The 1975 Plymouth Fury offers several important lessons for car designers and manufacturers. Automotive design must anticipate and adapt to changing consumer tastes. Clinging to outdated styling risks alienating potential buyers. A car's size and shape must work harmoniously to create a visually appealing profile. Excessive bulk without elegant proportions leads to an unbalanced and unattractive design. In a competitive market, vehicles need distinctive features or innovative styling elements to stand out. Playing it safe often results in forgettable designs. The 1975 Plymouth Fury serves as a reminder that size and formality alone do not make a car desirable. Its boxy and outdated design, combined with its sheer bulk, failed to resonate in a market that was moving towards sleeker and more modern vehicles. While it remains a noteworthy chapter in Plymouth's history, the Fury's shortcomings highlight the importance of adapting to the times and creating designs that balance practicality with visual appeal. Number 5, 1979 Mercury Zephyr, a car that embodies the pitfalls of badge engineering and uninspired design. As a rebadged version of the Ford Fairmont, the Zephyr struggled to carve out its own identity, offering a lackluster aesthetic that did little to attract buyers or establish Mercury as a distinct brand. The late 1970s saw a major shift in the automotive industry. Rising fuel prices and stricter emission standards pushed manufacturers to downsize their cars and introduce more fuel-efficient models. Ford's response was the Fairmont, a boxy, utilitarian sedan designed for practicality rather than style. The Mercury Zephyr, introduced in 1978, was a near-identical twin of the Fairmont. While badge engineering is a common practice, it's most effective when the rebadged model offers unique styling cues or features that distinguish it from its sibling. Unfortunately, the Zephyr failed to do so, leaving it as little more than a clone with a different badge. The Zephyr's overall shape was defined by straight lines, sharp angles, and flat surfaces. While this approach may have been practical for maximizing interior space and simplifying manufacturing, it resulted in a car that was visually dull and lifeless. The front fascia featured a rectangular grille with simple horizontal bars, flanked by rectangular headlights. It lacked any bold or distinctive elements, making it indistinguishable from countless other cars of the era. Badge-engineered cars can succeed when they introduce unique design elements that justify their existence. The Zephyr, however, made almost no effort to differentiate itself from the Fairmont. The subtle tweaks Mercury applied, such as slightly different grille patterns and trim options, did little to create a distinct identity. This left the Zephyr looking like an afterthought rather than a purposeful addition to the lineup. The side profile of the Zephyr was particularly uninspired. Flat, featureless panels stretched from the front to the rear, broken only by thin chrome trim that did little to add visual interest. The car's upright roofline and squared-off windows emphasized practicality over style. but the result was a car that looked more like a fleet vehicle than a desirable passenger car. The rear of the Zephyr continued the theme of simplicity to a fault. Rectangular taillights and a plain trunk lid offered no sense of flair or innovation. While this minimalist approach may have kept costs down, it also failed to excite buyers or set the Zephyr apart from its competition. The Zephyr's practicality and fuel efficiency were its main selling points, but these attributes alone were not enough to make it a standout in the crowded compact car market. Buyers who wanted a no-nonsense car often opted for the Ford Fairmont, which was essentially the same vehicle but came with a lower price tag. Meanwhile, competitors like the Chevrolet Malibu and Honda Accord offered designs that, while not groundbreaking, had more personality and appeal. The Zephyr's lack of distinctiveness left it overlooked by many consumers, contributing to Mercury's struggles to establish itself as a meaningful alternative to Ford. The 1979 Mercury Zephyr provides several important takeaways for car designers and manufacturers. When rebadging a vehicle, it's essential to include unique design elements or features that create a sense of identity and justify the additional cost to consumers. While practicality is important, aesthetics play a crucial role in attracting buyers. A car that looks bland or generic risks being overshadowed by more visually engaging competitors. A sub-brand like Mercury must establish a clear identity to thrive. Simply duplicating a parent brand's products with minimal changes undermines the value of the sub-brand and confuses consumers. The 1979 Mercury Zephyr serves as a cautionary tale of what happens when design takes a back seat to cost-cutting and expediency. Its boxy, uninspired body and lack of distinguishing features made it a forgettable entry in Mercury's lineup and a missed opportunity to create a truly competitive compact car. As we reflect on the Zephyr's shortcomings, we're reminded of the importance of balancing practicality with design innovation. It's not enough for a car to be functional. It must also evoke excitement and stand out in a crowded market. Number 4, 1971 Pontiac Catalina, a car that symbolizes the challenges of maintaining excitement in full-size sedans during the early 1970s. While Pontiac had built a reputation for bold designs and performance-oriented cars in the previous decade, the Catalina of 1971 faltered with a bland and uninspired design. By 1971, the American automotive market was beginning to face significant challenges. Rising insurance costs, the first hints of an oil crisis, and increasingly stringent emissions regulations were reshaping the industry. In response, many manufacturers prioritized size, comfort, and practicality over style and performance. The full-size Pontiac Catalina was positioned as an entry-level offering in Pontiac's lineup, below the more upscale Bonneville and Granville. Unfortunately, in attempting to balance affordability with practicality, the Catalina ended up as a stretched and overly generic design that lacked the flair buyers expected from Pontiac. One of the most glaring problems with the 1971 Catalina was its sheer size. With an elongated body and a wheelbase of 123.5 inches, the car felt unnecessarily stretched. This created a bloated appearance, especially when compared to the sleeker full-size cars of the 1960s. The long, flat hood and rear deck emphasized the car's length, but did so without any creative contours or details to break up the monotony. Instead of appearing grand or luxurious, the Catalina looked more like a stretched-out generic sedan with no real sense of purpose. Gone were the bold, aggressive lines that had defined Pontiac's design language in the 1960s. The 1971 Catalina's body featured flat, simplistic panels with minimal sculpting. The result was a car that lacked character or excitement. The front end was dominated by a wide grille with rectangular headlights, but even this design element felt plain compared to Pontiac's more adventurous past offerings. The sides were largely featureless, and the rear fascia, with its horizontal taillights and plain trunk lid, failed to make any sort of statement. Another issue was the lack of cohesion between the Catalina's design elements. The large, bulky roofline didn't blend well with the elongated body, creating a top-heavy appearance. Similarly, the chrome accents, while intended to add a touch of luxury, felt tacked on and did little to elevate the overall design. By 1971, Pontiac was beginning to lose the distinct identity that had made it a standout brand in the 1960s. The Catalina's uninspired design reflected this shift. Instead of the sporty, performance-oriented image that Pontiac had cultivated, the Catalina came across as an unremarkable, utilitarian car that could have been mistaken for a Buick or Oldsmobile. While the 1971 Pontiac Catalina was reasonably successful in terms of sales, its design left much to be desired. Buyers who prioritized affordability and space found it an acceptable choice, but it failed to capture the imagination of those looking for style or excitement. Compared to competitors like the Chevrolet Impala, which managed to combine practicality with a more cohesive design, the Catalina felt like a missed opportunity. The 1971 Pontiac Catalina offers several key lessons for designers and manufacturers. A car's proportions can make or break its design. The Catalina's elongated body and lack of visual balance gave it an awkward, generic appearance. Even in a full-size sedan, thoughtful details and sculpting can elevate a design. The Catalina's flat panels and minimal ornamentation failed to create any sense of excitement or luxury. Pontiac's strength had always been its sporty, performance-oriented image. The Catalina's uninspired design betrayed that identity, leaving it as just another full-size car in a crowded market. The 1971 Pontiac Catalina is a prime example of what happens when a brand prioritizes size and practicality over design and identity. While it may have met the basic needs of buyers at the time, its lack of character and excitement ensured it would be quickly forgotten. As we reflect on the Catalina's shortcomings, we're reminded of the importance of balancing practicality with aesthetics and staying true to a brand's core values. Only by doing so can a car truly stand out and resonate with consumers. Number 3, 1978 Chevrolet Impala Coupe. A car that serves as an example of the challenges faced by automakers in adapting their designs during a period of dramatic industry shifts. While the Impala name had been synonymous with elegance and mainstream appeal, since its debut in the late 1950s, the 1978 Coupe marked a departure from the graceful proportions and timeless styling of earlier generations. By the late 1970s, automakers were grappling with increasing fuel efficiency standards, rising insurance costs, and changing consumer preferences. The full-size car market, once the pinnacle of American automotive design, was under pressure to downsize and shed its reputation for wasteful excess. In response, Chevrolet introduced a new generation of the Impala in 1977, marking the first significant downsizing of its full-size cars. While this move was applauded for improving fuel economy and practicality, the new design left much to be desired, especially in the coupe body style introduced in 1978. The most glaring issue with the 1978 Impala Coupe was its squashed roofline. The low, flattened profile may have been an attempt to give the car a sleeker, more aerodynamic look, but it backfired. Instead of appearing sporty or dynamic, the roofline clashed with the car's boxy proportions, creating an awkward silhouette. The cabin felt cramped, visually and physically, and the low roof seemed disproportionately small compared to the car's long hood and rear deck. This design choice undermined the sense of spaciousness and grandeur that full-size cars were traditionally known for. Another problematic element was the overly heavy appearance of the rear quarter panel. The design featured a substantial amount of sheet metal between the rear wheel well and the back of the car, giving it an unbalanced look. This excessive bulk created visual weight, making the coupe feel sluggish and clumsy rather than streamlined. The rear quarter windows, small and awkwardly shaped, further emphasized the blocky appearance. Combined with the thick C-pillar, these elements detracted from the overall flow of the design. The front and rear ends of the 1978 Impala Coupe were equally uninspired. The grille was plain and lacked the boldness or flair seen in earlier Impala models. Similarly, the rear featured horizontal taillights that were functional but devoid of any distinctive character. These simplistic design elements gave the car a generic, utilitarian appearance. The loss of elegance and excitement that had defined the Impala in the 1960s. Perhaps the most significant issue with the 1978 Impala Coupe was its loss of identity. In Chevrolet's rush to downsize and modernize, the Impala lost the graceful lines and upscale appeal that had made it a household name. Instead, it became a forgettable full-size car that failed to stand out in an increasingly competitive market. While the 1978 Chevrolet Impala Coupe sold reasonably well, its design left a lasting impression of mediocrity. Buyers appreciated the practicality and improved fuel economy of the downsized platform, but were less enthusiastic about the Coupe's awkward proportions and lack of refinement. The Impala Coupe struggled to compete with more stylish offerings from rivals like the Ford LTD2 or even other Chevrolet models, such as the Monte Carlo. The 1978 Chevrolet Impala Coupe offers several important lessons for automotive designers and manufacturers. A car's proportions play a crucial role in its visual appeal. The Impala Coupe's squashed roofline and heavy rear quarter disrupted the balance of its design, resulting in an awkward and unappealing aesthetic. While downsizing was necessary, Chevrolet failed to adapt the Impala's design language to the new dimensions. This loss of identity made the car feel like a shadow of its former self. Simple design elements can still be elegant when executed with care. The Impala's plain grille, rear fascia, and unremarkable side profile lack the attention to detail needed to make the car visually interesting. The 1978 Chevrolet Impala Coupe serves as a reminder that even a legendary nameplate can falter when design priorities are misaligned. While it met the practical demands of its era, its awkward proportions and uninspired styling ensured it would never achieve the iconic status of its predecessors. As we look back on this car, we see the importance of maintaining a balance between practicality and design, and how even in times of change, a car must stay true to its brand's legacy to remain memorable. Number 2, 1975 Ford Elite, a vehicle that exemplifies the challenges faced by American automakers in the mid-1970s as they attempted to balance luxury, style, and the changing automotive landscape. Despite its aspirations to be a personal luxury car, the Elite's design choices left it feeling more like a clunky relic than the modern vehicle it aimed to be. By the mid-1970s, the automotive industry was undergoing significant transformations. Economic pressures, rising fuel prices, and tightening emissions regulations were forcing manufacturers to rethink their designs and offerings. In this environment, Ford introduced the Elite as an upscale coupe aimed at capturing the personal luxury market. However, rather than embodying a refined luxury experience, the Elite became known for its heavy-handed styling and awkward proportions, which ultimately hindered its acceptance among buyers. One of the most prominent features of the 1975 Ford Elite was its extensive use of chrome accents. While chrome was a staple of American automotive design during this era, the Elite took this trend to an excessive level. The front grille was adorned with a large chrome bumper that felt overbearing, while the side trim and rear accents contributed to a visual clutter that detracted from any sense of sophistication. Instead of enhancing the car's appeal, the chrome made it appear gaudy and out of touch with the emerging minimalist design trends of the time. The Elite's wide stance was another design choice that contributed to its bloated appearance. While a wide track can enhance stability and road presence, the Elite's proportions felt excessive and ungainly. This excessive width made the car appear heavy and cumbersome, rather than agile and luxurious. The overall silhouette was reminiscent of a heavy-set figure, rather than the sleek, refined profile expected of a personal luxury car. The combination of heavy chrome and a wide stance resulted in a vehicle that looked bloated and awkward. The car's elongated body, particularly when paired with its broad shoulders, created an unbalanced aesthetic that was not visually appealing. Rather than evoking a sense of elegance and modernity, the Elite's design communicated a clunky and outdated feel, making it hard to take seriously as a luxury offering. The Ford Elite struggled with its design language, which felt disjointed. The attempt to blend elements of sporty coupe design with traditional luxury car features resulted in a muddled identity. The front end, with its large headlights and prominent grille, suggested a sporty nature, but the heavy chrome and wide body contradicted this impression. As a result, the Elite lacked a clear character, making it difficult for consumers to connect with the vehicle on an emotional level. Despite Ford's intentions, the 1975 Elite received a lukewarm reception. Buyers were looking for personal luxury vehicles that combined style, comfort, and performance. But the Elite's design fell short of those expectations. While some appreciated its spacious interior and comfort features, many found the exterior unappealing, which ultimately affected its sales. The Elite struggled to compete with more refined offerings from competitors, particularly in an era where consumers were increasingly discerning about design and aesthetics. The 1975 Ford Elite teaches us several valuable lessons in automotive design. Excessive use of features, such as chrome accents, can detract from a vehicle's overall appeal. A more balanced approach is crucial for conveying luxury without crossing into gaudy territory. The Elite's overly wide stance and bloated appearance highlight the importance of proportion in design. A vehicle should evoke a sense of grace and balance, particularly in the luxury segment. A clear and cohesive design language is essential for a vehicle's identity. The Elite's conflicting cues undermine its potential as a personal luxury car, demonstrating that consumers respond positively to a well-defined character. The 1975 Ford Elite serves as a reminder of the difficulties faced by automakers during a time of transition. While it aimed to capture the essence of personal luxury, its design choices led to an awkward, bloated appearance that ultimately hindered its success. As we reflect on the Elite's legacy, it becomes evident that successful automotive design requires a careful balance between style, function, and identity. Number 1, 1972 Oldsmobile Toronado, a vehicle that showcased innovative engineering and mechanical prowess, but fell short in its overall aesthetic appeal. Despite its groundbreaking features, the Toronado's design was marred by excessively sharp angles and an awkward rear, ultimately detracting from the sleek, sophisticated image it aimed to project. Introduced in 1966 as Oldsmobile's flagship model, the Toronado was one of the first American cars to feature front-wheel drive, a significant engineering advancement that allowed for a more spacious interior and better traction. By 1972, the Toronado continued to push the envelope with its mechanical innovations, yet its design struggled to match this forward-thinking approach. One of the most striking characteristics of the 1972 Toronado was its sharp angles. While angular designs were becoming more prevalent in the early 1970s, the Toronado took this trend to an extreme. The car's front fascia featured aggressive lines that contributed to a somewhat hostile appearance. Rather than conveying elegance or fluidity, these sharp angles made the Toronado look disconnected and harsh. The design lacked the soft, flowing lines typically associated with luxury vehicles, undermining its intended market positioning. The rear of the 1972 Toronado was particularly problematic. The abrupt angular styling did not integrate well with the overall shape of the vehicle. This resulted in a rear end that felt tacked on rather than a cohesive part of the design. The large rear lights and the flat deck lid created a bulky appearance, clashing with the sleekness expected from a car of its class. The awkward proportions at the rear not only detracted from the car's visual appeal, but also disrupted the aerodynamic profile that the Toronado aimed to achieve. The design elements of the Toronado seemed to lack a unifying theme. While the intention was to create a modern, futuristic vehicle, the execution resulted in a disjointed aesthetic. The sharp angles at the front clashed with the bulky rear, making it difficult for potential buyers to appreciate the vehicle as a holistic design. This lack of cohesion left the Toronado feeling less like a luxury coupe and more like a collection of competing design elements that failed to harmonize. In a segment where elegance and sophistication were paramount, the Toronado's design fell short. The angularity and awkward proportions did not communicate the luxury experience that Oldsmobile sought to deliver. Instead of evoking a sense of prestige, the design elements contributed to an impression of clumsiness. While the 1972 Oldsmobile Toronado excelled mechanically with its front-wheel drive setup and powerful V8 engine, the contrast with its design shortcomings highlights an important lesson in the automotive industry. Innovation must be paired with thoughtful design execution. Consumers are drawn not only to performance, but also to how a vehicle looks and feels. The Toronado's impressive engineering could not compensate for its visual missteps, leading to a disconnect between what the car could offer and how it was perceived in the market. Despite its innovative mechanical features, The 1972 Toronado's design challenges contributed to mixed reviews from both critics and consumers. While some praised its engineering and comfortable ride, others found the styling unappealing, limiting its success in a competitive luxury market. Buyers were increasingly discerning, seeking vehicles that not only performed well, but also conveyed a sense of style and sophistication. The Toronado's design flaws ultimately hindered its ability to compete with other luxury coupes that offered both aesthetic appeal and performance. The 1972 Oldsmobile Toronado serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of cohesive design in the automotive industry. Here are some lessons we can draw from its experience. While mechanical innovation is crucial, it must be balanced with a visually appealing design. A car should not only perform well, but also resonate with consumers on an emotional level. A well-designed vehicle needs a unifying theme that ties all elements together. Cohesion in design creates a more appealing and harmonious aesthetic, enhancing the overall brand image. In the luxury segment, elegance and refinement are essential. Designers should strive to create cars that embody these qualities, moving away from overly aggressive or harsh design elements that detract from the intended experience. In conclusion, the 1972 Oldsmobile Toronado stands as an interesting case of a vehicle that was ahead of its time in terms of mechanical innovation, but faltered in its design execution. While the Toronado offered impressive engineering, its excessively sharp angles and awkward rear ultimately detracted from its aspirations of luxury and sophistication.